Welcome to Inside the Issues, Water Security in Arizona. I'm Olivia Fierro, your host for this important, in-depth discussion about water in our state. Recently, water has been more frequently in the news, so we've brought together the top experts on the subject to help us all understand the current issues related to Arizona's water supply and usage. As residents of one of the fastest growing states in America, there's one thing we can't ignore. We live in a desert. So here are some questions that we should all be asking. Where does our water come from? And do we have enough of it to sustain our growth and to support our state's diverse industries? Today, we are going to discuss that and more. This is our second Inside the Issues show, made possible by the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. So I want to bring onto the stage Clean Elections Executive Director Tom Collins. Thanks so much for being here, Tom, and bringing us together.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you for hosting another episode of Inside the Issues. You know, last time we had a great discussion about education, and today's topic is equally important. We hope today's discussion sheds more light on the latest updates and provides context about water supply in our state. Today's panel of experts will help break down this critical topic, and we look forward to a well-rounded discussion. You know, at Clean Elections, forums like these give voters direct access to experts on things that are top of mind. Being part of such an effort goes hand in hand with encouraging participation in the political process, which is our main purpose at Clean Elections. But the first step is being an informed citizen. In the end, what matters most is that everyone casting a ballot has access to facts to make informed decisions. So we've got a lot to cover, Olivia. Let's get started.
Joining me today is a panel of Arizona's leading water experts. We will begin with Vineetha Kartha, who is the Director of Water Policy at Central Arizona Project. And next we have Dr. Sharon Megdal, who is the Director of the University of Arizona Water Resources Research Center. We have Sarah Porter, who is the Director of the Kyl Center for Water Policy with the Morrison Institute for Public Policy at Arizona State University. And seated next to her is Dr. Maxwell Wilson, Water Resources Management Advisor with the City of Phoenix. So thank you all so much for being here. Set the stage for us. Where is our water coming from? Sort of lay the groundwork for us from a statewide perspective. Historically, where is it coming from? Which sources are the most reliable for us?
So where does our water come from? First of all, that's something that I really am passionate about, people knowing where does their water come from. And I don't mean the tap. And there are even people in Arizona who don't have tap water that's reliably flowing every day. And so statewide, we're relying on Colorado River water for a little bit more of a third of the supplies. And that includes both water, on the river itself, our western boundary for the state, as well as water delivered through the Central Arizona Project, which is a 336-mile canal that delivers water from the river into Central Arizona, uphill as far down as Tucson, where I live. And then we have in-state rivers, and here in the valley where we are, Salt River Project is a huge source of water. And all of that water is from in-state, whereas you pointed out the Colorado River, it starts up in the upper basin and then flows to our region. Groundwater historically has been a very important source of water for Arizona and remains so at over 40%. And then recycled water, treated wastewater, is a growing component of our water supply. But the thing I want to mention about your question about reliability is utilities, their job, for those served by utilities, their job is to provide water reliably 24/7. And most utilities in the state do that very, very well. But when we look over time, certain sources of water may be less reliable than we thought they would be. And that's particularly the Colorado River water. And then other source, particularly groundwater, is a stock. It's a finite supply, and we're using it up. And so we have to be looking at things for the long term and seeing where are we, how fast are we using it, how fast are we depleting it, and what should we be doing about it. The last thing I want to say just about painting the broad picture is that we can talk about statewide averages, but there are many communities in the state that have one source of water. It may be groundwater that they're reliant on, or here in the valley, it may be Salt River Project water, Central Arizona Project water, recycled water and groundwater. And so water is very local, even though it may come from other places.
All right, thank you very much. Colorado River transitions us perfectly over to Vineetha, and I want to make sure that for all of our viewers today that you are each getting a great opportunity to introduce yourself and your work. So Colorado River, this is your area of expertise, certainly. So tell us, and when we all hear about the projects that you work with and the importance of course, the Colorado River being the key source and the battleground right now. So tell us about your work and why this is the focal point of our news conversations about water.
So when I speak about Colorado River, we are in hot water right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, as Sharon mentioned, Colorado River makes up almost 40% of the water supplies. It's 40% because we've started to conserve a lot of Colorado River water in our reservoirs to make sure we can utilize the storage in those reservoirs. What has been happening is the snowpack that provides a source to the water that's flowing into these reservoirs, which Lake Mead and Lake Powell comes to mind as two of the largest reservoirs on the Colorado River system. It is April 2026. At this point, usually we would be seeing snow starting to melt in a normal year. But what we have seen this year is that snow already started melting a month ago. Very bad, historically bad record. We have not seen such a bad snowpack ever in the history of record.
Wow.
The worst dry year that we have seen prior to this was in year 2002. We had back then 74% of snowpack, but 28% of water melting from it and coming into those reservoirs. This year, our snow peaked at 60% on March 9th of 2026. Clearly a month before it would have melted. So a lot of that is being taken up by the nature. It just gets seeped into the soil. So whatever water we will likely get into the reservoirs are going to be really tiny. So we truly are in hot water. Not only do we have a bad snowpack, but because of global warming and climate change, we have been seeing a lot smaller snowpack over the past 25 years, and we have not seen that snow melt and make that water coming into these reservoirs over the past 25 years. If you look at the record, we have been in a drought from the past 25, 26 years. And when we started back in 2002, all of our reservoirs were completely full. But if you look at it right now, our reservoirs are at 36% capacity. Lake Powell and Lake Mead, which would carry the largest volume of water normally, are in the 30s. Lake Powell is at 28%, Lake Mead is at 32% of capacity. There are some reservoirs upstream or above Lake Powell, which do have some higher capacities. They are likely full. So we are in a crossroads. We are in a bad state because not only do we have a bad snowpack this year, but all of the conditions in the past 20 years have exacerbated and our reservoirs have been depleted as well. So not a good place to be in right here if you're somebody that's doing Colorado River programs. Mm-hmm. By the way, I work with the Central Arizona Project, which Sharon talked about. It is a 336-mile canal that brings water, Colorado River supplies, all the way from the river to central and southern Arizona, where more than 80% of the state's population lives. I am the director of water policy at the Central Arizona Project.
And how many people are relying on that source for their water?
So we deliver water to central and southern Arizona. This is more than 80% of the population lives. So about 6 million people live within the service area that we provide water to.
And so let me move over here to the left and speak with Sarah Porter, who is the director at the Kyl Center. Sarah, as you've been doing research and looking sort of at this big picture, talk to me about your work with the Kyl Center, the research that you're doing, and the perspective that you are bringing to the table regarding this shortage, the drought, and where you are seeing the status of what we are dealing with right now, and your perspective on where we're moving.
Well, thank you. Now that we have the happy technical details from Vineetha. So by way of introduction, I am the director of a water policy think tank, the Kyl Center for Water Policy, and it's part of ASU's Morrison Institute for Public Policy. Morrison Institute is 45-ish years old, and it's a think tank that focuses exclusively on policy issues as they impact Arizonans. The Kyl Center was launched in around 2015. I came on as the director then. And we do have a resource that I'll mention now so I don't forget it. We have a website called the Arizona Water Blueprint. Very easy to Google that and find it. And we have a lot of different tools related to water in Arizona, including a story map that explains Colorado River shortage and some tools that will show how shortage will impact different communities. I guess I can zoom way out and give a very big picture, perspective, which is, and it's almost already been said, but we're at a point now where we have to start making decisions about how to go forward. What investments do we want to make as cities and states and industry in water supplies for the future? From my perspective, there is some amount of ability for particularly cities to withstand very deep cuts of Colorado River water, because with other agencies, including CAP and the state of Arizona, cities have been preparing. They've been taking extra water supplies and recharging aquifers with them. They've been taking, important steps to make investments in new water supplies, which I think we'll hear about from Max. So there's a sort of intermediate ability to bear up under deep cuts. But over the long term, really, I think the solution is going to be investing in some new supplies of water. In the big picture, it's important for people to understand, I think, that cities where like 90% of the gross domestic product of the state of Arizona happens, cities don't need that much water. I know that doesn't sound very precise, but if we were trying to restore an agricultural economy, if our challenge was to make sure that every acre of land in Arizona would continue to be farmed in perpetuity, we would have an incredibly big job. But the challenge to make sure that cities have enough water over the very long term to stay vibrant, to provide a good quality of life, to have a healthy economy, that is, in my mind, a very manageable challenge. It doesn't mean it's cheap, doesn't mean it's easy, but it's something that the cities in Arizona who do it better than anyone else can, it's a challenge they can rise to.
Let's introduce here Dr. Maxwell Wilson with the city of Phoenix. We're talking about cities. It transitions perfectly to you. Obviously, Phoenix, one of the biggest, fastest growing cities in the country. So where are we here in Phoenix, and what is being done right now? And, where are we sitting from your perspective, and what work is being done out of your office?
Well, thank you so much for the question, and thank you for having me here today. In my role advising mayor, council, city leadership on some of these most critical water issues and developing the city's water strategy, I think it makes sense first to take a step back and think about what people expect of us when they choose to make the biggest investment of their entire lives by buying a home in one of our cities, right? And what they expect is that they're going to have water come to their tap all the time,
reliably,
every single day, and it's going to be clean and healthy and without being a problem. That's the standard that we have to live up to. We don't have a choice. We have to hit that goal. And we have to do that in the context of all the challenges that we could possibly face, whether those are regulatory, whether they're hydraulic, whether they're financial. That is our charge and our mission. The challenge we're facing right now, I think has already been alluded to really well by Vineetha, is we're facing the lowest flow conditions on the Colorado River in at least 1,200 years. 1,200 years is an impossibly long amount of time to even imagine. 1,200 years ago, we were 400 years from inventing knights in shining armor. That is the last time that it was this bad on the Colorado River. But we, as cities, still have to succeed. We have to provide. We have to make sure that we can get that water to you. And to do that, we've prepared significantly for this moment by putting water underground to store for days just like this, by building incredibly expensive pieces of infrastructure. If you are from Phoenix, you may have noticed that the Dreamy Draw area was under construction for a very long period of time. That was a $300 million pipe that Phoenix built to move water into traditionally served areas by the CAP so that we could be ready for a moment like today. We're continuing with that work moving forward by investing in additional water supplies. Some of those are expansions of our in-state storage system at Bartlett Dam. But I think most importantly is the movement towards advanced water purification or the direct potable reuse of reclaimed, recycled water.
Max alluded to and Sarah alluded to, we have some amazing growth and economic engines within the central Arizona. All of that is supported by Colorado River supplies that are coming in. The issue is we share that with 6 other states in the Southwest, as well as the Republic of Mexico. Mm-hmm. And Max talked about us not seeing this kind of a drought like until almost for 1,200 years. The one good thing about it is 1,200 years ago, we didn't have dams. But now we do. We have reservoirs, and I talked about Lake Powell and Lake Mead. It is great to have infrastructure, but it is very important to have policies and rules on how to use the water that is going into that infrastructure, what gets stored in reservoirs, how that water goes to those pipelines. So what we're looking at is how do we use this rapidly declining supply carefully so that we can sustain our lifestyle going forward into the future. So Lake Powell and Lake Mead, 2 of the largest reservoirs that store Colorado River supplies, they are operated under rules called the 2007 Interim Guidelines. It's a very innovative name because it was created in 2007.
Oh, the creativity was flowing that year, wasn't it?
I mean, yes.
It was flowing like the water.
It was flowing. We're so proud of that. But so when those rules were put in place, we were coming off of a 4-year really dry spell, all the way from 2001 through 2004. And we realized, we lost 50% of our storage in just those 4 years. So the basin states that rely on this Colorado River, as well as Reclamation, who operates those reservoirs, decided it's time to bring some rules, and we need to know if this dry spell were to happen again, or if it were to continue moving forward, we would need to figure out who shares in these shortages. How are we going to share in the pain? And in 07 guidelines, we decided, okay, this is how our future might look like based on the information we knew back then. Sarah talked about the priority system. In the state of Arizona, in the lower basin, there is a priority system, and there are a lot of laws that allude to it. It's called the Law of the River. The foundational aspect is a compact, and we'll come back to that. Probably Sharon will come back to that. But in 1968, legislation was passed. It's called the Colorado River Basin Project Act. Under that, CAP said it would take the impacts of the shortage, but it was dependent on certain laws that came before it. We had the AZB California decree, we had the compact. So relying on certain water volumes flowing down from the upper basin, we agreed to take shortages in times of duress. There was also decisions from the US, or at least commitment from the United States, that they would try to augment the supplies that was going to Mexico. So let's leave that aside. So in 2007, we said, okay, we came together within Arizona. There were many meetings, and we decided that the state of Arizona would take the first cut of shortage if Lake Mead were at a certain elevation. Nevada would share with us, and then later on, under different agreements, Mexico also agreed to take reductions. This was back in 2007. Fast forward 7 years later, we realized, that was not enough, because our dry spell kept continuing. Then we came up with more tools on how to conserve water, what Max was alluding to. We have used technology, we have used ingenuity to reduce our water use, take that water and put that back into Lake Mead. That has meant a lot of water users that use water for agriculture, they have not been watering their crops, they have left that water back in Lake Mead. City of Phoenix, as well as City of Scottsdale, Chandler, a lot of them have been partners with CAP to take conservation measures and leave that water in Lake Mead. So then came 2019, there was a drought contingency plan, which was because we realized those actions were not enough either. So going forward, coming to now, the guidelines we put together in 07, they are expiring in September 30th, 2026 to be precise. But like I said, back in 2007, it was a negotiated agreement between all the 7 states and the United States. We took that same procedural path. Unfortunately, the 2 basins that share the water, which in the upper basin are the states of Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. And in the lower basin are the states of Arizona, California, and Nevada, and also the Republic of Mexico. The two basins cannot see eye to eye. We are at standstill, and we have not been able to agree on how to share those reductions. The upper basin states are insistent that all the reductions should fall on the lower basin water users, which are residents of the states of California, Arizona, and Nevada. And in our opinion, in the lower basin states' opinion, these reductions are so deep, the dry hydrologies may be so dry, taking CAP or CAP taking the most volume of reductions, California taking the most volume of reductions, it's not going to resolve the problem.
Max alluded to this, but I think it's really important to underscore population growth is not a driver of these problems that we have on the Colorado River. It's not because of the growth of populations, because the fabulous story of Phoenix's water demand is repeated in the larger cities all through the basin. Population growth makes it painful, makes more people incur more, impact, but it is not a reason for the shortages that we're seeing on the Colorado River.
It's the climate?
It's a number of things, and we could talk for a long time about it, but climate change, historical overallocation, the lack of accounting for evaporation off these massive reservoirs. No one's responsible for taking less water because of a lot of evaporation. There's huge evaporation. So there are different drivers of the challenges, and it's hard to untangle those drivers, but it isn't population growth.
As we're concluding here, share with me and our folks at home your kind of final thoughts about what we want our viewers to take away, whether it's something that they need to be thinking about in their own practices, whether it's something that they should be inquiring when they're voting, what do they want their legislators to be prioritizing, what is important, what are the decision makers, needing to be prioritizing, what can they be knowing, questioning, learning about water, what do you hope that they have a curiosity about, maybe that we weren't wondering about before, if this is a topic that is really new to them in terms of giving it some serious thought. What do you want us to marinate on or boil over?
I'll start. So I want to say, pulling the thread that Sarah was pulling, which is decoupling growth, right? So we can continue to have the water availability that we have right now, open your tap and get that water, but you also have to be very cognizant of how to use it. Do not waste water. It is a hard-fought source of supply. Also, we all have to share. Pointing fingers at each other is not going to help. Right now, with the upper basin states, them wanting CAP or the state of Arizona to take most of the brunt, it's not going to help. It can only come to solutions, a good sustainable solution, if all of us share. And that goes to every single person that even drinks water. We have to take care of each other. We have to help each other to ensure we have this sustainable supply going forward many, many decades and centuries into the future.
I would play off that and say, ultimately, we face, I think, as we've alluded to today, immense challenges. These are the biggest water challenges Arizona has faced in at least 100 years. And they're solvable challenges, but only if we all work together and put common good above our own individual self-interests. We are going to have to, as communities, work together to share water in ways that we never have before. Across industries, we're going to have to share water in ways that we never have before. And all of us in our homes are going to have to ensure that we take the types of responsible decisions that lets us have the kinds of communities that we want.
Well, what I would like people to take away is probably what they think is true about water isn't. So start with that. The things that you think are the problems probably are not. And I do agree with what Vineetha and Max said. It's going to take people being inspired to work for the common good, just that little extra motivation to think about how we work together to make sure that we stay water secure into the future.
Place of curiosity. Less than a minute, Professor.
Okay, curiosity. Ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions, whether it's of your utility, your elected official at the local level. your state legislators, others. Max quickly said his website. Sarah talked about Arizona Blueprint, the Arizona Water Resources Research Center at the University of Arizona, wrrc.arizona.edu. We have fact sheets for every county. They're free, they're downloadable. We have very basic information. We have webinars that are geared for the general public. So engage in whatever way you can. Don't take the water for granted. Yes, the utilities are there to make sure it comes, but we all are in this together and we all need to engage.
Throughout this discussion, we asked two simple questions. Where does our water come from? And do we have enough of it to sustain Arizona's future? Today you heard the answers, and it's more complicated, more urgent, and more hopeful than most people know. But here is what we want to leave you with. This is not a story that belongs only to the experts. It belongs to you. And this is something our partners and presenters of this forum at Clean Elections agree with. Gina Roberts is the Voter Education Director at Citizens Clean Elections Commission. So Gina, what did you think of this interesting exchange of information today?
Thank you, Olivia. We learned so much today from our panelists, and I think our voters learned a lot today too. It's important for all of us to know that the decisions about Arizona's water are being made all the time, in committee rooms, in agency offices, at public meetings, in Arizona's legislative chambers. But we all have a role in all of this. First, by tuning into forums like these, by registering to vote, and by participating in all elections. We at Clean Elections will continue to bring this type of information to you, the voters. Our goal is for everyone casting a ballot to stay informed and involved.
Well, thank you, Gina, so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Arizona's water future is not written yet. We can help write it together. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. I'm Olivia Fierro, and we hope to see you next time on Inside the Issues.